What's up, you guys, and welcome to another episode of the Ask Alex Show, where this is a show we just talk about a lot of movies, TV, and a lot of pop culture. I'm your host, Alex Hampton, and today we have a very, controversial or serious show for you guys today. Ian couldn't be with us today because he had to work, but we'll definitely try to get him back on. But I was able to get Jeremy Branch from Movies Are Terrible. Jeremy, how are you doing today?
What's up, buddy? I was not sure what the question was going to be. However, after that introduction, it all came flowing back to me like a opened faucet. So yeah, I think it'll be an interesting conversation that we have. And I also wanted to talk to you for a minute about Dune. So hopefully we can get that in somewhere as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're gonna definitely jump into Dune.
Nice.
I know Dune just came out last week. And we're gonna touch on it. We may give minor spoilers, but just to let you guys know, we're gonna give our general thoughts and reviews on Dune before we end the show. But if this is your very first time ever watching this show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, then hit that bell right next to it that we get all the notifications every time releasing a video here on my YouTube channel. And guys, do me a huge favor, hit that like button as well. It definitely helps us in the algorithm. And if you cannot watch this show right now on YouTube, this show right now is on Spotify. So you can listen to the show on your audio podcast on Spotify. It's premiering right now as you're watching us talk on the show at this moment. If you want your topic or question on this show, it's very simple. Just send me an email at theaskalexshow@gmail.com. That's the theaskalexshow@gmail.com. If you submit your topic or question, it helps us in our question pool to pull out some movie news and some things of that nature. So send that to us. It would be greatly appreciated. Now let's go ahead and jump into the first topic, and essentially the only topic for today's show. And this topic comes from Miss Iris Peoples, and Miss Iris writes, "Hey guys, so a tragic shooting happened on the set of Rust. Is this the time now for studios to use fake guns instead of real guns for future films?" Well, thank you for your question, Iris. Now, I wanted to only do this question because a lot of the other questions I got were good questions, but this question has been roaming around the internet for the last few days, or at least the last week or so, and this really touched me in a certain way because when Iris sent me this question and I was looking at what happened, if you guys don't know, Alec Baldwin was involved in a mishap shooting on the set of Rust, an indie film that he's producing, where he accidentally discharged his weapon against one of the cinematographers and the director of the film. Now, the director of the film is okay. He came back from everything. He's fine, but the cinematographer unfortunately didn't make it. Now, this brings a broader question, like, one, will this change the outlet scope of having real guns on set? And my perspective is that as a filmmaker myself, I understand that on sets things tend to happen. I know that there are certain people on the Fast and Furious set who were severely injured from like car crashes and explosions. Same thing from Transformers and just things of that nature. Rarely have I ever heard anyone being shot on set. Like I haven't really heard those things before. And keep in mind, they said that previously on this particular movie set, a gun discharged twice, but it was blanks in the in the gun. My thing is with guns in general, and someone who works on special effects, you can buy a toy gun and add certain things to it to make it look real. I personally don't understand why they're using real guns at all. I never understood that, because I understand that they're using blanks so they can have the recoil and the actual feel of holding a gun. But when I'm watching stuff like Law and Order, or if I'm watching like SWAT, I know as the viewer that it's fake, and it's cool to see that they're, using these types of weapons to portray their particular narrative. However, I feel kind of angry when I hear the fact that they're giving actors who probably have never used a gun at all an actual gun that could potentially hurt somebody. You know, my heart and my prayers go to the cinematographer's family. She was a wife, a mother, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I'm still trying to wrap my mind around why are sets allowing actors and directors bring live guns on the set when you could, like, I use Final Cut Pro to edit my films, my videos, and all this other stuff. I can edit a small shootout scene by using my fingers, like as guns, and it would seem realistic. So I'm trying to figure out, why do you need guns? Now, Jeremy, I know you've seen this story. I'm not sure if you know anything about being on set or anything of that nature, but when you saw the story, how did this make you feel? And do you think that they should get rid of guns on movie sets, given the fact they're telling a fictional story that doesn't require you to actually have a real weapon?
Yeah, man. So to your question, first of all, I can think of two reasons why you would use a real gun over a prop gun. And the reason number one, maybe three reasons. Maybe I can come up with three reasons. Number one is exactly what you said, the recoil. It's the actual action of the gun, because you can fake it. In a shootout scene, all you got to do is kind of just pop your hand back as you're firing the gun. You know, it's not impossible to do. The muzzle flash looks a lot different. I believe a lot of times you can see a digital muzzle flash, and then also the smoke of the discharge of the gun. So there's a couple of different components that you've got to consider as an effects artist when you're rendering this stuff. Is all of those things possible? Yeah, man. Part of me wants to say, honestly, no, you got to use real guns. They're more realistic. But I'm not asking you to use real dragons in Game of Thrones. So it seems kind of stupid to say you got to do this real, but then nothing else has to be real. So, I mean, the Incredible Hulk, you know what I mean? Like, none of this stuff is real. So the fact that I would have that kind of bias just shows the way, like, I think American movie fans are just kind of hardwired to believe that if you're not using real guns, then it's not a real movie, I guess, per se. But that said, it's a terribly tragic story. The woman's name was Helena Hutchins, and she was a cinematographer, 42-year-old, as you said, mother, wife, seemed like a good person. Alec Baldwin is he's Hollywood royalty. He's been acting in movies since I was born, basically, as long as I've been alive. Alec Baldwin has been in movies that I loved, from Beetlejuice all the way up to more recently 30 Rock. And he's a professional. He's done a million movies. He's never lost his temper. He's never, like, there were people that were actually kind of trying to frame it like that maybe this was intentional, but obviously not the case. This was a terrible, tragic accident. He actually supported the walkouts. Dude, this story is crazy. We can't even get into all of it because there's so many like little details about people walking off of this very set. As you said, there were guns that were discharged already. There was a veteran prop master who basically explained the warning signs about this $5 million movie Rust that led him to turn down the job. So, like, this movie was a problem. People could see that it was a problem ahead of time. And a lot of folks point to the fact that it's got a $5 million budget. Well, there's a lot of movies with $5 million budgets that have safety protocols in place. That's where do you think that $5 million comes in? That's why movies are expensive as they are, is because there's so many, things that have to be addressed all the way throughout the process. So it is a terrible tragedy. The only other time that I can think of this specific thing happening, although the circumstances were quite different, is 1994 when the movie The Crow came out, which I actually just now did a video on The Crow. You can check it out on Movies Are Terrible. We touch on it a little bit, but Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, he was shot on the set of the movie, shot in the chest. He was supposed to fall forward. He ended up falling back. And at that moment, everybody thought he was just playing a prank. And then they realized he was unresponsive. They took him to the hospital, and within hours, he was dead. And that, I believe, because what they say, there's no such thing as a fake gun. There's different kinds of ammunition that go in real guns. And that's what Alex was talking about earlier. A bullet has multiple different components to it. I don't know how familiar the viewers are with firearms, but basically, even the shell casing that is typically discharged outside of the side of the gun. Sometimes it can go out the barrel. Sometimes little fragments of metal can be used as projectiles coming out the front of it. Accidents happen. This is one of just a few, which does speak to the fact that Hollywood, for the most part, they're precautious. They look out for their people. Like, yeah, we just now heard Ruby Rose, like on the set of Batwoman, that there were some major problems on that set. You know, when Twilight Zone came out back in the 1980s, John Landis, the director of such hit films as American Werewolf in London and Animal House, killed a woman and her daughter with a helicopter. The helicopter came down on top of two actors, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm pointing to anecdotal stories. I'm pointing to 2 or 3 things that have happened over the years that look very, very bad on Hollywood. Mostly we don't see these kind of stories, which I think is a testament to them. But this particular story, it stings, dude, because Alec Baldwin, by all accounts, seems like a decent dude. This is not why he went to work that morning. Somebody screwed up, and they screwed up big time, and it cost somebody their lives. I don't know that any laws were broken, but if his family, not Alec Baldwin, if this cinematographer's spouse is not entitled to a shitload of money for a civil suit, then there is no justice in the world. That's what I do know.
Oh yeah, I would willing to bet that I would hope that their family gets more than the budget of that film.
Yes.
Because that's just, and listen, I've seen online people are blaming Alec Baldwin, like Jeremy said, people are saying that he was upset that day. Listen, I wasn't there. I'm not gonna blame him. I genuinely do believe this was a clear accident. Who I hold accountable is whoever is the studio or the director or ADs of this film, because 9 times out of 10, when you're giving props for something, it's supposed to be spot check before you give it to the people on set.
Between every take.
Exactly, because anything can happen. When I don't own guns. I've never had the desire to own guns, but I've been to the shooting range. And the first thing that they tell you is treat it like it's already loaded. So don't fuck around and do all this different stuff. Like, no, because you don't know, but it's funny. This has sparked so many changes to some sets. Like, I read a report that the show The Rookie, which I love with Nathan Fillion, they're now going to start giving those actors for their current season, I guess, more fake guns. So apparently they've been using real guns this whole time, and maybe they have not had any problems on the set. And I get it, real guns, I guess, bring more out the aesthetic of the recoil and the muzzle flash and editing does. I mean, you can tell from an editing standpoint what looks fake and what doesn't. But at the same time, you never want to put something in someone's hands that can ultimately hurt someone. So
no, you're right.
My prayers and my love goes out to that family and to the people on set. Alec Baldwin is very distraught at the moment. I mean, I don't know what it's like to accidentally kill somebody or personally kill or intentionally kill somebody or accidentally. I don't believe he intentionally killed anyone, but accidentally killing someone, I can't wrap my mind around that. Like, that's just crazy. So my hearts and prayers go out to him and his family and the rest of the people who are affected on set. I hope everyone is okay. If they do continue to pursue legal action, I support them in that, because somebody needs to either go to jail or hit or give a really fat paycheck. But what do you guys think about this particular story? Just jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Now, guys, like I stated earlier in the beginning of the show, we're going to start talking about the Dune movie. Now, I remember saying earlier on the Ask Alex show in previous episodes, this was one of my most anticipated movies of this year. Now, I've never read the books. I've heard about the books, never read the books. And I never seen any of the original films until I saw the original Dune, I think maybe a few weeks before I saw the new rendition of the movie. And the original film is actually pretty good for what it is. It's definitely a long sandy film, but but I kind of felt like they were going to take a lot of those cues from the original film into this one. Now, when I went into this film, again, not knowing the original source material or whatever, I really enjoyed it because of how visually it was. I saw it in the Dolby Cinema. And I don't know, every time I'm in that theater, whatever movie you're watching, it just brings you in into the visuals. I mean, the flying car, well, not cars, but the flying spaceships and the sand and the fight scenes were all there. I love Jason Momoa's character.
He
Like,
was great.
oh my god, I want him to be my big brother. Like this dude was freaking amazing. Timothy Chalamet's character also amazing. I really enjoyed it. Now I will say this, I do feel like it's maybe 45 minutes too long.
Ooh, that's a lot. Yeah. It's
I
long.
do feel like it is 45 minutes too long, and I'm not gonna lie that at the end of the movie, because it ends at a cliffhanger, I was in the theater, I was like, what the fuck? It's like it building you up, and then in credits, I was like,
I don't think it's a spoiler to tell them that the last line in the movie is you haven't seen anything yet, or something to that effect. And you're like, well, then what have I been doing the last 2 hours and 45 minutes? I feel like I've been seeing something. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I have to say, it was perfectly crafted. And again, this is someone who's not read or watched any of the material. But I know, Jeremy, you watched the movie. It seems like you enjoyed the movie, and you've had previous history of watching the past material. What did you think about Dune, and how did it make you feel leaving the theater?
So a couple of things to kind of set it up. First of all, Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite filmmakers. Blade Runner 2049 is probably my favorite film of the last 10 to 20 years. Like, it's gorgeous, and it's also very long. Denis Villeneuve is what I would call an indulgent filmmaker. People will say it about Christopher Nolan. People will say it about, in particular, those two, Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. These are very indulgent filmmakers. And I say that in a way that, like, on one hand, it does mean that sometimes these big ass heavy movies kind of sag in certain places at times. But is what I'm asking personally for him to get rid of any of that imagery. I don't know that I'm willing to do that either, because I kind of agree. I think 45 minutes is a little more rigid than like, I feel like the movie clocks in at like 2 hours and 45 minutes, and maybe we could have got it down to 2 hours and 20 minutes and not felt like we were missing much. I don't know. I'm not an editor in that way. I don't know how you do it without really messing up the pacing, but I do feel like I agree with Alex. I feel like for me, the first 2 hours were the strongest part. I love all of the character development. I've talked to a lot of people that said the beginning is dry. I didn't know what was going on. The action doesn't start for 2 hours or whatever. And I respect that, but that's not usually what I'm going to the movies for. Like you said about Jason Momoa, Rebecca Ferguson, Timothy Chalamet, like Javier Bardem, and this cast, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin. This cast is incredible. This cast is like, they took every one of the best actors working and they put them in this movie. And I love it. Like you said, it's visually just mind-blowingly good. There's a lot of Star Wars in it, right?
Oh yeah, this was like Star Wars, but in the desert. And I know that's weird to say because Mandalorian takes place in the desert, but it was like times 10. And and like Josh Brolin's character, oh my god, like there's a certain scene I want to say. I won't spoil it, but there's a certain scene that he's in that just grasps me, where he's having, I guess, a very intense argument, and I'm like, what the fuck? He's like one of my, I wanted him to be Batman. Like, he was so good in this movie. I was just floored by the performances in the movie. Now, to your point, I will say, I can see why people would say when you start off watching the movie, it's a bunch of sand and meaningless dialogue to a degree. I can see where they're coming from, and I can understand why people didn't really like it. But again, for someone who has never read or watched any of the previous stuff, I actually really enjoyed it because of how it looks. And Denis Villeneuve, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of his work until Sicario and then Blade Runner 2049. And I'm like, holy shit. And then I had to see Dune, and I'm like, it's like a visual masterpiece in front of you. And if you are if you have the ability to watch it in IMAX or Dolby, definitely
You
do it.
got to. Don't watch it on HBO Max. I watched about 10 minutes of it on HBO Max and decided right then, like, I am knocking this movie down by not seeing it in the theater. And it's like an essential IMAX movie, which is awesome. What I mean, okay, we talked a lot about positives, and there are just a ton of really, really positive things. Is there anything that, like, you said it might feel a little long. I wanted to ask you guys, but, like, is there anything at the end that kind of, like, bothered you about the movie? Did anything happen at the end that you were just kind of like, what the fuck is that?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
Not really, but I guess my thing is, and this is not a shot to Zendaya's acting ability. I think Zendaya is an amazing actor. I just didn't like her character.
I thought she was all right, dude. I'm gonna be honest. I thought it was a bold choice to kill the black guy. Why are you gonna kill the black guy? There were so many people there to kill. And I'm like, oh, little Twinkie, little Twinkie.
I don't know. Maybe it was just me. I saw that coming though. Because he was like the only one to a degree. Like, I kind of saw that coming. Now that I think about it, I kind of saw it coming. And
that's crazy. Because they're like Middle Eastern characters for the most part. They look and act like they would be almost like Muslims. I think that's part of the allegory, is that the Fremen are kind of like Muslims. And this is a little spoiler, but you're not going to know who we're talking about when you get there. It doesn't matter. But yeah, it didn't bother me by any means. I just thought it was a weird choice. I'm like, there are so many extras in the movie that they could have gone that direction with, but I don't know, man. I thought it was really good. I just thought it was kind of funny at the end to see Timothy Chalamet like beat that dude's ass, and I'm like, yeah right.
Yeah, and like now that's the one thing I would say. Like, I couldn't necessarily believe that because of how small he is, and then when you watch his progression in the movie, it's like, how did he become a badass within 2 hours? He is
a badass though. And dude, isn't it weird the way that, like, so in the future, they've gotten rid of a lot of, because this is like thousands of years in the future, they've gotten rid of a lot of the technology, and guns are a thing that they thought were like classless to our conversation about weapons and stuff. So they did away with guns in favor of a more, I guess, sophisticated way of battle. They've got this body armor and they sword fight each other. And the way that armor worked was really interesting.
So I had a question about that. So they got rid of guns, and I guess you could say that the body armor and the different weapons are, I guess, a upgrade. But it seemed like to me, especially when Timothy Chalamet is in that gold body armor, it seemed impenetrable. My question is that, okay, how is what you're doing now more sophisticated than, I don't know, an actual gun in this case? Like, because like there are people who, like, I don't know, did you see this in a movie where it took too long for certain individuals to die in the midst of the combat scenes? Like, with the fighting and the swords, like they're, don't get me wrong, it's not like they're dying and it takes them a long time to die, but when you see them drop, it's like they're not dead, but they're dying in a sense. Like,
and I'm not gonna say anything other than you and one character is coming back for the sequel. There's no way that character is gone, despite what we saw. He will be back. You know what I mean?
But I wanted to ask you before we wrap, do you think they'll make a second one?
They got to, dude.
With them, I mean, with Discovery coming in, but also how it ended, because the cliffhanger, like, by the way, before I finish what I was about to say, when you watch the movie, you have to go into knowing that this movie was to set up other movies. So when you watch the end of the movie, it's a humongous cliffhanger where you will leave the theater like, what the fuck just happened? Like,
a little bit,
so, and that's why when I asked Jeremy the question, do you think they'll make another movie, with it being on HBO Max and then also in theaters? It did well this weekend, and I believe it did well overseas. So I'm hoping for another movie. But do you think Denis Villeneuve will come back, given the fact that he didn't like the fact that, they put it on HBO Max? And this movie is, I think, I wouldn't say a masterpiece, but it's a visual masterpiece, if anything.
How full was your theater?
Oh, it was packed.
My theater was packed. And I think it did like $50 million opening weekend, which is impressive for right now. Ridley Scott's movie, The Last Duel, opening weekend, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, $4 million. So that just kind of shows we're talking a different category of movies again, which is great because this movie was a financial disaster. I thought this movie right here was the one that was going to kill Denis Villeneuve's career. But the new guy running HBO basically said, these days we are tracking what makes a successful movie in different ways. Like The Suicide Squad just now came out. It was kind of a box office bomb. I mean, it didn't do super well. It certainly didn't do what they wanted it to. However, it piqued interest in the original Suicide Squad. It piqued interest in the animated movies. So there's an uptick in all Suicide Squad IP. Like it's not just about the movie. There's a Peacekeeper show coming out with John Cena. This has got eyes on that. So if it can spark an interest in the things that are around said property, like if people go and they actually watch Blade Runner now because they thought Dune was great, well, then you got to factor that into it. But I'm pretty sure Denis Villeneuve, I have no way of knowing this on the inside. I'm 90% sure that there was no question that he was going to make the second one, no matter what happened. I would think it was insane if they didn't just film the whole thing instead of trying to bring everybody. So that would be my one question is, if they didn't already shoot it, how long is it going to be until the sequel comes out?
I mean, that's a good question, because when you look at something like The Hunger Games, they filmed the last film within a year and divided it into two parts.
Yeah.
Because it was cheap. It was financially cheaper. And when you shoot films like that back to back, it's financially cheaper. Now that the fact that they only shot one film, and let's just say that film took maybe about at least 6 months to film, but a year in post-production, I can only imagine how far they're going to go in the second film. Because again, when you watch this movie, it's visually stunning, great storytelling, but visually stunning. And you had to spend at least a year in post-production. And for me personally, I would hope he would come back, and if he's going to do a second one and a third one, shoot those back to back. So if this pandemic goes crazy, even more crazy than what it is now, at least we'll have something to watch during the time we're getting.
It'll take up the entire time, dude. At this length, we just watch all 3 Dune movies and the shit will be over, like because they are long. But it's funny, dude. We were talking about indulgent filmmakers. We talked about Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. Those are 2 guys that were directly affected by the way that Warner Brothers switched their strategy to do day and date releases. So I think you've got a really valid question. What is the relationship like behind the scenes now? And we can only really speculate, but dude, if there is not a second Dune, then it's one of the dumbest, most pointless movies I've ever seen, despite being a masterpiece at the same time, which is a crazy situation to be in. But who wants to read a half of a great book and then be like, well, too bad. It's like George R.R. Martin with the freaking Winds of Winter, dude. Write that book, George R.R. Martin. Anyways.
Yes. And to Jeremy's point, and he's right, it would be a pointless thing. The one thing I would say is that if Denis Villeneuve didn't come back and do the second one, I would have a hard time swallowing that pill, because I don't know how a different director would do with the second version of Dune. And also, to his point about Christopher Nolan, I mean, Christopher Nolan got screwed to the point where he went to Universal to produce next. Yeah, he went to Universal to produce his next Christopher Nolan film. Just think about that. Like Denis Villeneuve, he can't take Dune to Universal, obviously, but if he wanted to produce another film of his another original film, he can go to any studio if he feels like, Warner Brothers and Legendary are not really, supporting him. So I would just hope that once Discovery guys take over and all this stuff is like over with the pandemic, we can get another Dune within the next 2 to 3 years. But I would have to say, if I had to rate it, I would give it probably like an 8 out of 10. Ooh. Visually stunning, the dialogue, cast, amazing. There were some things that did feel like you will feel like there's some pacing issues where it does take a little bit too long in some of the scenes. But the moment when things start going, it's like you cannot take your eyes off it, at least in my opinion. Now I think Ian saw it too, but I'm not so sure if he really enjoyed it the same way we did. So I would have
No,
to
I don't
bring him
think he
back
did
to
all
us.
that much, which I was kind of curious why. We'll hopefully be able to talk to him about it next time. I
Definitely.
co-sign it almost everything you said, man. I want to push it a little bit higher than a 4 out of 5 or an 8 out of 10, just because I do love this filmmaker so much. I think that's really fair, though. I think a 4 out of 5 is really fair. I might say somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5 out of 5. You're not going to find many movies better this year. I don't think so. Yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. I'd love to hear what everybody thinks about it.
Yeah, so guys, if your theater is open and you want to check out Dune, definitely go check out Dune and tell us what you think in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Ask Alex Show. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel where you get all the updates every time I'm releasing a video here on my YouTube channel. Some quick housekeeping before I pass it to Jeremy. Real Debate Season 3 trailer will come out within like 2 weeks, so definitely check that out. We've been doing some funny and really cool stuff with that. Also, I'm going to be putting out some more content and a new show. So definitely stay tuned for a lot of stuff. I've been building a lot of stuff in the studio, so you definitely want to check those things out. So yeah, it's been a really fun ride. So I can't wait to show you guys. So Jeremy, where can we find you on YouTube and social media?
Well, you're going to be able to see me on this next season of Real Debates. So you guys do make sure that you're subscribed so you can come back and check all of those episodes out. It has been a lot of fun filming them. Make sure that you check out Movies Are Terrible on YouTube. I just now uploaded a video about 2 hours ago. And it needs your help. So head over there, subscribe to the channel, check it out, let us know what you think, and check out Movies Are Terrible on Twitch as well. And have a happy Halloween. And also, thank you, Iris. Always a pleasure to get your questions. And thank you, Alex, for having me, man. It's always a good time.
Oh, anytime, man. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. And as always, you guys have a blessed day.